earlier that our primary sponsor for this event is NRCS. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, is one of the many agencies of USDA, but I venture to say that, excuse me, that it's the agency that has the closest contact with farmers and ranchers. With an office in almost every county in Texas, NRCS provides personalized assistance for producers, and they really know the conditions that are happening in that area. This afternoon, we have with us Samantha Salinas, who is the resource team leader in Bexar County, and she's going to talk with us about programs and assistance that NRCS can provide.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Are we good, Aisha?
Yes, very good.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samantha Salinas, and I'm the resource team leader for the San Antonio team. The team includes the 5 counties of Atascosa, Bexar, Frio, Karnes, and Wilson, with a growing population of 2.12 million. So it is serviced by 7 NRCS staff within the team, assisted by 5 soil and water conservation district employees and more than 10 NRCS zone specialists. The 5 offices are have a combined total acres for over 3.5 million acres that serve over 46,000 farms and ranches to address various concerns, in which primary production include cattle, horses, some goats, poultry and hay, wheat, corn, vegetables, and so on. The agricultural land amongst these team covers MLRAs and ecoregions that range from the northern Rio Grande Plains to the Edwards Plateau and Blackland Prairies. We see the resource concerns across the team, which range from livestock production, limitation for cattle production, to inefficient water use on irrigated cropland, to addressing local food deficits in cropland and pollinator habitat in more urban settings. So each of the offices on the team, and I'm sure the offices across our zone in Zone 3, which is the Corpus Christi zone, work alongside partners such as the San Antonio River Authority, Texas A&M AgriLife, and the Farm Service Agency and RMA to assist the landowners on the San Antonio resource team in promoting conservation efforts that will also provide positive and lasting customer relationships. So who are NRCS and what exactly do we do? So the Natural Resource Conservation Service is a federal agency that works in partnership with the American people to conserve and sustain our natural resources. We have a proud history of supporting America's farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners. For more than 80 years, we have helped people make these investments in their operations and local communities, and to keep working, lands working, boost rural economies, increase the competitiveness of American agriculture, and improve the quality of our air, water, soil, and habitat. So as the USDA's primary private lands conservation agency, we generate, manage, and share the data, technology, and standards that enable partners and policymakers to make decisions informed by objective, reliable science. So, and through one-on-one personalized advice from our field office staff and specialists, we do work voluntarily with producers and communities to find the best solutions to meet those unique conservation and business goals. So by doing so, we help ensure the health of our natural resources and the long-term sustainability of American agriculture.
Samantha, so the mission I'm sorry to interrupt. For our attendees, please remember that you can at any time use the Q&A box to ask questions. So even as she goes through her presentation, feel free to use that box to ask questions and we'll get to them when she's done. I'm sorry, Samantha, please continue.
The mission of NRCS is that we deliver conservation solutions so agriculture producers can protect natural resources and feed a growing world. And our vision is a world of clean and abundant water, healthy soils, resilient landscapes, and thriving agricultural communities through voluntary conservation. So one of the services that we provide is technical assistance, and technical assistance can be a variety of many services that we provide. So one of them is natural resource planning. So evaluations of an individual property are assessed by NRCS staff member. Usually the field visit will take into consideration areas such as current forage available, water holding capacity, current management strategies, as well as infrastructure. Another service that we provide is design and engineering, implementation of techniques used to reduce concerns that may affect soil erosion, improve water quality, increase plant productivity. Various tools and software are used to formulate these alternatives in which best management practices are applied to achieve the desired goal, as well as extensive experience and expertise from our local staff, as well as writing conservation plans that are developed on various landscapes in which NRCS evaluates the goals of the property. And so we use the information such as scientific research and data analysis that assist in providing these alternatives that will result in proper management as a whole. So what is on this particular slide is a Texas NRCS website in which the local community as well as just public in general can access. And there's plenty of information on this particular website in regards to all the different projects that NRCS is involved in, the different programs that are available, locating opportunities, ideas on what can be done as far as scientific research and science-based classroom type setting. And so it offers a variety of information that definitely is useful. And so I went ahead and included the website at the bottom of the slide so that you guys can go in and take a look and explore the website. And we also have another website for your use, and it's called farmers.gov. And on this particular website, you can find also quite a bit of information, including business needs and entering information so that you can locate your local service center, and also visit with the RMA and find regional offices or an insurance agent nearby to be able to work with you should you have any questions. So developing a conservation plan goes back to meeting with the landowner and kind of coming up with a goal and vision of the property. And so in essence, this plan becomes your roadmap for selecting the right conservation practices for your land. And NRCS offers about 200 unique practices designed for working farms, ranches, and forests. And then NRCS financial assistance can cover part of the cost by implementing these conservation practices. So generally what we'll do is we will meet with the landowner and kind of do an interview and a resource inventory of the property and visit with the landowner, leaser, business owner on what exactly they would like for their property and what resource concerns they would like to have addressed. And that we identify the limitations and opportunities. For example, if this is a cattle operation and landowner wants to do some prescribed grazing but lacks fencing, that may be a limitation that won't enable him to do that. Or if we visit with a local farmer who's wanting to raise crops and doesn't have a water source, or even opportunities for furthering growth when it comes to their particular property. And so when we're out there, we inventory the resources, we take a look at the infrastructure on the property, and if it's going to be able to come together to be able to make that operation more economically efficient for the landowner. And so as we look on the land, we start analyzing the resource data and start computing different alternatives to be able to assist our clients. So that's when we start kind of coming up with different ideas. And obviously we want the best decision. We want to make the best alternative, best decision for the landowner, but it's definitely the landowner's decision on what alternative they want to pursue, and then evaluate those alternatives as far as what is going to be the best fit for the operation, and then making the decision to decide if he's going to implement or she's going to implement that particular alternative, or at a certain time frame, maybe in a couple years, in which their infrastructure will come together, or if they lack something that NRCS can assist with, they can go ahead and incorporate that into the conservation plan. And once they've implemented this plan, NRCS staff as well as the landowner will visit, and NRCS staff will evaluate, how the system is working for that particular landowner and follow up with any concerns, any more assistance that our agency can provide. So one of the programs that we do offer is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and we also refer to it as EQIP. And this tends to be our bread and butter program. It's a highly known program across the nation, which has provided numerous funds in regards to different areas of funding, and provided monies and whatnot for projects to implement on an individual property or properties. And so what this program does is it provides the technical and financial assistance to producers to address natural resource concerns and deliver environmental benefits such as improved water and air quality, conserve ground and surface water, increase soil health, and reduce soil erosion and sedimentation, improve or create wildlife habitat, and mitigate against drought and increasing weather volatility. So through EQIP, NRCS provides agriculture producers with one-on-one help and financial assistance to plan and implement these improvements, or what NRCS calls conservation practices. So together, NRCS and producers invest in solutions that conserve natural resources for the future while improving these ag operations. So there are various funding pools in the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And so the most recent ones do have a variety of funding pools. Some of them address some different geographical areas in the state. You may have some such as beginning farmers and ranchers and socially disadvantaged farmer rancher funding pools in which an applicant can apply for, depending on the concern. If there is a property owner that wants to incorporate a high tunnel system on their property, they can apply for these funds under that statewide funding pool, as well as some other pools, some that are known in the Valley, like the fever tick eradication, and some disaster recovery fund pools that are brought on by weather events and so on. And then we also have the local county-based fund pools in which an applicant can come apply at their local field office in which the property is located. So this is the definition of a socially disadvantaged beginning farmer and limited resource farmer and ranchers. And so it talks about an increased payment rate for these historically underserved groups. So enhancements that include these increased payment rates and advance payments of up to 50% to purchase these materials and services needed to implement conservation practices included in their EQIP contracts. So the 50% advance payment to purchase these items to be able to implement these conservation practices is an option for beginning farmers, socially disadvantaged, limited resource farmers and ranchers, so that they can implement these practices on their land and be able to assist and cover the costs when in the materials and labor and so on and so forth. So when it comes to a beginning farmer or rancher, that typically talks about an individual or entity who has not operated a farm or ranch, or who has operated a farm or ranch for not more than 10 consecutive years. So this requirement applies to all members of an entity. And I will say this, if a beginning farmer or rancher applies for funds through our agency, typically there is an audit process that we may ask for possible tax documents, like a Schedule F when it comes to filing agricultural exemptions on taxes, in which the producer can provide that information that there was 1 year out of the 10 that they did not claim those exemptions and meet the requirements for a beginning farmer or rancher. So we have a socially disadvantaged group as well when it comes to referring members that have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice because of their identity, and that the below groups consist of the following when it comes to socially disadvantaged groups, which are American Indians and Alaskan Natives, Asians, African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Hawaiians or Pacific Islanders. And so this is a self-certification process. NRCS does not request any kind of information regarding socially disadvantaged group. The individual will self-certify if he is one of these groups. We do receive questions about gender, such as female and whatnot, if that is taken into consideration. From my understanding, the Farm Service Agency does take gender into consideration as a historically underserved group. However, NRCS does not. So that's something that we just want to clarify. And if an individual or an entity that is female oriented, in essence, wanting to apply for funding, on the application itself, it does mention that gender is not taken into consideration. So, but the beginning farmer, rancher, associated, disadvantaged, and limited resource, which I'll go into here in this next slide, those are the groups that do qualify for coverage of at least 50% and get a higher rate than the average customer that's been farming over many years and meets those requirements. So the limited resource farmer or rancher, in essence, means that there is a direct or indirect gross farm sales not more than the current index value in each of the previous 2 years, and who has a total household income at or below the national poverty level for a family of 4, or less than 50% of county median household income in each of the 2 previous years. This particular underserved group, just like the beginning farmer rancher, may warrant documentation on behalf of NRCS to show that they meet these particular requirements. There is some more programs that our agency offers. One of them is the Conservation Stewardship Program, and the other is the CSP Grasslands Conservation Initiative, which our inaugural funding cycle for that, I believe, was in 2019. And so the Conservation Stewardship Program helps agriculture producers maintain and improve their existing conservation systems and adopt additional ones to address priority resource concerns.
I actually can Frank can check real quick. I'll just text you.
Samantha, you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here. I wasn't sure what happened there.
Oh, sorry, I muted that person. Please continue.
Okay, and so CSP then pays participants for conservation performance. So the higher the performance, the higher the payment. So when it comes to conservation stewardship program with GCI, which is the Grasslands Conservation Initiative, it provides financial assistance to conserve grasslands through a single opportunity to enroll in a 5-year contract. The eligible lands are limited, though, to cropland for which base acres have been maintained under FSA's ARC PLC program, and they were planted to pasture or grass, including idle or fallow land, during a specific period. So enrolled acreage must be managed consistently with a grassland conservation plan. A couple of other programs, or really one program, but it has a couple of different components to it, is the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, and that is called ASEP. And there's 2 different components to ASEP. One is a Wetland Reserve Easement, WRE, and the other one is an Agricultural Land Easement, which is an ALE. So WRE provides technical and financial assistance directly to provide landowners and American Indian tribes to restore, enhance, and protect wetlands through the purchase of a wetland easement. So WRE easements provide habitat for fish and wildlife, including threatened and endangered species. They do improve water quality by filtering sediment and chemicals, reduce some flooding, recharge groundwater, protect biological diversity, and provide opportunities for educational, scientific, and non-developed recreational activities. So agricultural land easements, that's another component to the ASEP program. And actually we have a couple of here in Bexar County that some of the ranches have implemented on their property. And so what this particular program does is it provides financial assistance to partners for purchasing agricultural land easements that protect the agricultural use and conservation values of land, typically from development in more urban settings. So agricultural land easements protect the long-term viability of the nation's food supply by preventing conversion of productive working lands to non-agricultural uses. So land protected by these easements provides additional public benefits that include enhanced environmental quality, historic preservation, wildlife habitat, and protection of open space. And so some of these properties that are under this particular program do have quite a bit of historical significance to them, relics, old sites, things of that nature. And so they're really interesting to see, and then obviously offer tremendous production values to the nation's food supply, and allow for that particular property to be refrained in essence from being developed. And so we like to see those kinds of properties and the different resources that they have that definitely make working for NRCS really special, because we get to see these properties that go so far back that, you know, that are typically in its natural state before any kind of development has reached it. And so we're thankful that we get to kind of see those types of situations. So there's also resources for smaller farms. And so being in Bexar County, we see a lot of small farms, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that, you know, there are resources that need to be addressed. We've worked with farmers that have half an acre to ranchers that have 3,000 acres or more. And so here's just a resource of small farms that we have under the NRCS website that you can look into to see what else may be available for an individual with a smaller operation. And then there's some state resources that a producer can look into, such as TDA, in which they offer funding for producers and grants and things like that, particularly when it comes to the smaller farms, but various funding pools they offer as well that may be able to offset some of the costs that one would accrue when it comes to farming and ranching. And then I have my information listed here. And so if anybody has any questions or concerns, we'd be glad to entertain those. And so I've been working for NRCS for almost 20 years, and I've seen various landscapes. I've seen different operations. I've seen areas of historical significance that that in essence have made my position as a resource team leader very gratifying. And so I look forward to the more adventures working with this agency, and what else can, in essence, our agency and myself and my staff within RCS here in the San Antonio resource team, what we can offer to help our client base.
Thank you, Samantha. We do have a few questions here in the queue. I'll go through them one by one.
Okay.
The first is, what are the most popular or commonly used NRCS programs in Texas?
So I actually went over quite a few of them. The EQIP one is the most, probably one of the most highly sought out programs, because it offers quite a bit of technical assistance and financial assistance when it comes to assisting these farmers and ranchers, wildlife conservationists, urban farmers. And so that tends to be the one that we hear about the most, but there's also programs such as CSPP that I went over, CSP GCI, and then there's also programs for nonprofits, for businesses, for universities, things like that, that are grants that are different funding pools that are managed and and whatnot and reviewed by our state outreach coordinator. And we've had a lot of success in those as well here in Bexar County. And so a lot of our programs, yeah, are tailored to individuals, but there is other options available when it comes to seeking funding opportunities through NRCS.
Okay, great, thank you. Since you mentioned EQIP, I'll go to this question. Can you provide some specific examples of how a farmer in the Rio Grande Valley could use the EQIP program?
Absolutely. I'm actually originally from the Rio Grande Valley. I'm from Westlaco, Texas. I was born and raised there. And once I graduated high school, went to college, and I go back occasionally. I actually interned down the valley for a couple of years out of my 4 years of summer internship. And so the valley has got a very rich farming culture. And so I know with farming operations down there, they use a lot of they farm a lot of dry land. And so, or they use, so sometimes they tend to use inefficient watering systems if they do have water available to use as irrigation. And so our agency does provide some assistance in irrigation sprinkler systems or drip systems for cropping, for crops. And the only real kicker on that, and this is a national policy, is that if an applicant chooses that they want to seek funds for irrigation under our program, they have to have a 2-year irrigation history out of the last 5 years to qualify. And so there's other things that we could also assist with that don't require the irrigation history. It may be something like cover crops that would help with bringing some nutrients back into the ground. And so on. And so developing those kinds of conservation plans to make the operations more effective and economically feasible include those particular types of projects.
Okay, and you mentioned cover crops, and our panelists today will talk about cover crops a little bit later in the afternoon. Is there a minimum acreage that a farmer needs to have to receive NRCS services?
Absolutely not. I'll give you a prime example. So here in Bexar County, I've been working extensively with an individual who owns, I think, 5 acres total, and has a pecan orchard on the property where he does custom harvesting of pecans. And we, NRCS here in Bexar County, assisted with 3 seasonal high tunnels on the property. And so he's one of the exclusive growers of lettuce here in the area. And so he's done a phenomenal job. He raises also some different varieties of vegetables and fruits. And he actually has marketed his business very well, to the point where I think the local restaurant has heard of him. And so the chefs, obviously preparing the food for their clients and customers, want to see what they're going to be serving. And so they visited the farm in which this individual had these products under these seasonal high tunnels. And so now he's been very successful in selling his produce to local restaurants, as well as the farmers market at the Pearl Brewery and others like in New Braunfels and other areas. So they've been very successful in their venture. And this is farming. And actually he's starting to do pasture chickens and things like that. And we were speaking not too long ago, and he wants to go ahead and incorporate goats. So it's 8 acres is not a lot, but he has done very well in his avenues, and he's provided a lot of opportunities. And we're just glad that we were able to assist him in being able to address his goals and him being such a tremendous success.
That's great for him. There are quite a few questions here, and we have time, but I ask if one of our participants asked that if you'll put up your contact information again.
Sure.
Maybe go back to that slide and we'll let it sit while we continue to talk.
Okay.
Let me find, there it is. Thank you. Okay, just a second. What accommodations does NRCS have for Spanish speakers?
So we have a lot of different materials that are available for Spanish speakers. We have our application for conservation program assistance that we do offer in Spanish. So if there is a Spanish speaking individual that is needing assistance in filling out an application, we do have the Spanish version of that. Our state outreach specialist, I believe, is the limited, not the limited resource, but she, in essence, her position is to provide the assistance for translating documents and whatnot that be able to assist the landowner. And so an example of that is we have, even up in San Antonio area, we do have a lot of Spanish speaking individuals that are needing information that we typically only have in English. And so we'll make a request to our state outreach specialist to have these services that NRCS has access to translate these documents to Spanish. And so that it doesn't only affect the Spanish speaking landowners and ranchers, but it also affects the contractors as well. We've got contractors that are Spanish speaking that build fences, that also farm and ranch, that are on water well staff, that work for water well drillers and so on. And so we're able to provide those services for them. And then we've got field office staff as well that are fluent in Spanish too. And so it's helpful to have that access when it comes to our Spanish speaking employees. And some of them are certified by our agency to be able to translate these particular documents and be able to translate, in essence, the information that their producer has inquired about in Spanish.
Okay, so if a Spanish only speaking producer walks into the office where there just happens to not be any Spanish speakers there, can the agent just call somebody, like they have a resource to get to pretty quick?
Yes, ma'am. We have those resources available. And so there typically tends to be one, I wouldn't say in every county, but generally in the surrounding counties. And so, for example, I have one on my staff that is certified to translate documents and translate the process of our agency and the different services that we provide. And so our setup in the zone is by team. So I have 5 offices on my team, and I at least have one person on my team that can translate. And so in essence, that's the concept. We want to have somebody that we can reach out to in the event that there is not a Spanish speaking individual that can assist a contractor, a landowner, a business owner, an entity, someone that's representing an entity, to be able to provide that service to them.
Good.
Aisha,
Yes, ma'am.
this is Bertha Venegas. I'm the State Outreach Specialist for NRCS. I just want to mention that we do have, each office has a 1-800 number that connects them to a person that can do interpretation for them, while we can connect them to an employee that can help answer their questions. So right off the bat, if they happen to come in the office or call the office, there's a 1-800 the field staff person would call and ask for any language. It could be Spanish or it could be any other language. And a person will come on and help answer their questions. And then we will connect them with a person that can, in the field, that can help them answer those questions. So all that is available. I also put my name and phone number on the chat so that they can call me directly. And I do speak Spanish, and I can help them connect to a field staff person that can help answer their questions depending on what their needs are.
Okay, so not speaking English is not a reason not to go into the office or to make that connection.
That is correct.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Bertha, for clarifying that.
No problem. I included my name, email, and phone number so people can just call me directly and I'll connect you to someone that can help you.
Yes, and Samantha, our audience cannot see the chat, but Samantha's contact info is up, so Samantha can also get you in touch with Bertha. And
Okay, I put it in the Q&A. I don't know if they.
okay. Another question, how does the reimbursement process for NRCS programs work? Do you have to spend the money and then get reimbursed?
That is the typical scenario for our financial assistance programs. So what'll happen is, and we've also had some confusion about this as well. So we've actually had individuals that submitted an application, did the work for, what they were applying for, and then came to our office and requested reimbursement. However, they did not get approved for funding. And so simply, in essence, turning in an application for financial assistance isn't going to consider that person for funds. So the way the process will typically work is someone will come in and apply for a financial assistance program, let's just say EQIP, and then one of the field office staff will then go out and conduct a resource inventory of the property, look at the different areas of concern, evaluate the property, come through and recommend alternatives, different management schemes to help that particular landowner reach their goals. So the landowner can then fill out an application for financial assistance, and an application can be submitted at any time of the year. And so we do have funding cycles, and when those particular applications will be taken into consideration, but an application can be submitted at any time. And so once the NRCS staff has informed that individual, the applicant, that their application has been considered for funding and approved, then the applicant would come in and sign a contract in which the NRCS official would go over and review the contract with that individual, the requirements for implementing these conservation practices and the different standards and specs that need to be followed. So typically what happens, so for example, is if an individual applied for a cross fence and they were approved for a contract, the individual would then purchase the materials for that cross fence, and the NRCS official would review the standards and specs on how this cross fence needs to be built so that the landowner knows what materials need to be purchased. And so once the individual has purchased these items and has installed the cross fence, then NRCS would go out to the property, and best case scenario, the cross fence is built to our standards and specs, and they are typically reimbursed within 2 to 4 weeks after certification has taken place. And so, but the payments are also based on a payment rate. So in the past, this used to be known as cost share, or 50% of the cost and things like that. And it's no longer like that anymore. We pay a flat rate per unit, such as per foot, per acre, per cubic yard. So when an NRCS staff member works up the application for financial assistance, and they've done the conservation planning on the property and have in essence figured out that it takes 2,000 feet of fence to go ahead and rotate these cattle, and for that year NRCS is paying $1.50 a foot. So then in essence the landowner can kind of have an idea as far as what NRCS would help pay for 2,000 feet of fence at $1.50 a foot. So that's typically the case. There is though options for advance payment. So if an individual is seeking is needing some help to implement that practice and doesn't have enough of the funds for him to use, his personal funds to do things like install water wells. The watering systems can be very costly and expensive. The NRCS individual is allowed to grant an advance payment of up to 50% of the contract item in the contract, not necessarily what it costs, but the contract item in the contract that would help that individual install that practice. And so then, the individual will then have to finish up that particular practice. And then we certify that practice that it meets NRCS standards and specifications.
Okay. What's the best way to apply for EQIP? Is it to go into an office or to start online?
Well, typically it was coming into an office. However, with the current situation with COVID, the agency has implemented measures that protect our employees, protect individuals such as the landowners of the local community. And so I would highly suggest that individual that is requesting assistance for programs, technical assistance, maps, any kinds of information they're needing from their local office, to call them first to see if they are available to meet in person, if that individual landowners requesting that, because there is some areas that haven't been hit horribly by COVID-19, and they can actually grant access to visitors, but it's not like that across the state. And so I would highly suggest that you call the office there in which the land is located to be sure that the office is accepting visitors. And if they're not accepting visitors because of COVID, we understand that you can still call them and they can do a teleconference. We can visit through Jabber, through email, things of that. And we are still going out to the field and assisting these clients. We just got to practice social distancing measures.
Yeah, COVID changed a lot of things. Sometimes I forget. I want to forget that. So here's the question. We have a few questions that are very specific. So we ask those of you that have specific questions to get in contact with Samantha, and she can either answer your question or guide you to somebody that's in your county. But I will ask this that comes from Anita Summers' question. Can a farmer apply for just one program at a time, or can they try to combine a few different kinds of programs to help them be successful or survive?
They can apply for different programs at the same time. The thing that NRCS has to definitely take into consideration is if the same program is going to be addressing the same concerns. And so let's just say that an individual is applying for a cross fence under EQIP, and that's going to obviously promote rotational grazing, prescribed grazing, things of that nature, and wants to submit an application under CSP to do the same. That may be something that we may not be able to allow because under EQIP, the individual's already addressing that resource concern through a cross fence. And so it's going to really depend on what exactly the individual is wanting to do, what resource concerns they're wanting to address. So there may be something where they apply for this same cross fence. They've done they're in the process of installing the cross fence, but want to manage erosion on a stream bank or a river bank that is on their property and apply for CSP. They can do that because the cross fence and the erosion that is on the property are two different concerns. And so they're not addressing the same thing under two different programs. They are addressing two separate resource concerns under two different programs. It may be something where we assist with wildlife and whatnot, and we've got biologists on staff that help with those as well, and those types of concerns as well. And so an individual is not limited to that. We just need to evaluate the applications and to see what's actually going to be the best fit financially and really technically for the individual, and explain to them what that process is.
Okay, thank you. So that was a lot of amazing information. NRCS is one of the best USDA agencies. I say that all the time, I promise. I will close. My last statement to you, Samantha, besides thank you, is a comment from one of our attendees, from Richard Catarusa from Bigfoot. He said, Samantha, thank you for a great presentation that I will share with other producers. And that certainly is the goal of our event, for our attendees, our farmers and ranchers, to learn and then to take it out there and share it. So again, thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you for having me. And like Aisha said, my information is posted here on this slide. And if anybody has any questions, even if you're not located in the 5 counties that I oversee, feel free to contact me so I can put you in touch with an individual that can help you address questions or concerns that you may have.